I can't believe it's called Super Smash Bros. And there's less Mario Universe characters than Fire Emblem characters in the game now. Is that true?
Let me cut the malarkey real quick and tell you what I love. I love Smash Brothers. I also love Fire Emblem and chess. I love that Fire Emblem is in Smash Brothers. However, I feel that the implementation of Fire Emblem in Smash Brothers has been subpar, to say the least. So let's talk about it rationally. Let's talk about it and be calm. And be calm about it. What do I mean by that? I mean that from the perspective of somebody who's played majority of the games, the FE reps in Smash really only represent a small subset of the types of characters and mechanics that the series has to offer. And I think that's a detriment to both series, for reasons that I will get into later in a video. Making a platform fighter is hard. Making a good one is even harder. Making a good crossover platform fighter full of beloved IPs is like, especially when a lot of the source material looks like this, and this, and this, and this, and this. You gotta take a lot of creative liberties. And right here is where I want to pause and talk about this part of that phrase. When we're talking about adapting reps from these games, there's a good bit of freedom because generally, deep RPG experiences like Game & Watch Ball have a wide variety of abilities and items and characters to pull inspiration from. But what happens when your source material looks like this? How do you adapt this into a platform fighter? You don't, to me. Captain Falcon is one of the most curious characters in all of media. He comes from a racing game, yet his Smash Bros. Iteration has made him an undeniable cultural icon. There's an F-Zero anime that came out after Melee that I can only assume exists solely to justify this galaxy-shattering Falcon punch against the main villain that literally fucking kills both of them. So I guess my point here is that from a company that managed to get this out of this, I expect a few more creative liberties to be taken from a source material where shit like this exists. And I'm not trying to go after Sakurai right now, it's the Nintendo bigwigs that pick the characters. They're the ones with the motivated interest to pick reps that are recognizable and can bolster sales of other games. But in my head, having the Fire Emblem Smash roster like this would be like if the Pokemon Smash roster was like this. Some people are bugging right now, and while there is hyperbole to that statement, I feel it's a valid comparison. Like Fire Emblem, Pokemon has a plethora of series-old archetypes that are reincorporated and reinterpreted with every new addition to the series, of which the Pikachu clone is just one of many. You never hear anyone complaining about how there's 10 Pokemon in Smash, and I think that's because, with few exceptions, they all play very different, and because it's Pokemon. But it is those long-established archetypes within the source material that lay the groundwork for a creative and varied adaptation of RPG elements into a platform fighter. And Fire Emblem has been laying that groundwork, planting those fat potential seeds for decades now. Like, hold up. There are so many different types of fighters and weapons in Fire Emblem. Of course, there are swords, but there's also lances, javelins, axes, tomahawks, bows, daggers, shurikens, wolverine claws, and magic-imbued variants of all of them. There are so many ridiculous spells with batshit crazy animations. There are cat people, wolf people, people who ride on birds and bird people, people who ride on dragons and dragon people. There are these weird-ass werehog looking things that I forgot even existed. There's even this funky-looking knife-shooting puppet dog. There's a dude with a giant axe wearing only a loincloth who makes his first appearance in battle via sandstorm. Like, there's all this potential and variety for amazing representation in Smash, and like, here's what we got. Memes aside, guys, the groundwork is definitely there for a crazy Fire Emblem fighting game. You get these good people on board, I will see you at EVO. Thank you very much. So I really wanted to make this video as someone who loves Fire Emblem to just voice my gripes with the FE Smash roster and made some suggestions that I would implement to give the series' characters and mechanics an overall more accurate representation in Smash. So I want to talk about all 8 of them and just give my take. But before we get there, I'm going to take half of the ones we do have, put them back on the bench. Little disclaimer, if your main, fave, boy, or waifu gets cut, there is no cause for alarm. I'm just a dipshit on the internet with an opinion and no influence whatsoever over this massive multinational company. So let's go to the timeline. Looking good, nothing too egregious, and then things just start getting buck nasty. Something happened here to cause all this, and that's a little thing called Fire Emblem Awakening. Fun fact, there are 16 games in the series, 8 characters in Smash. Here is the character to game spread. How about that? Awakening made $1 trillion and saved the series, so everyone at Intelligent Systems and Nintendo are just cracked off of this new Fire Emblem hype. And it makes total sense. It's the hip new anime thing that people like, and it just so happens to have 16 games, and each one has several protagonists who are pictured in box art. And at least one of those protagonists in almost every game share the same class and weapon type, so it would be easy to justify making a lot of them clones of each other, even if some of the moveset choices don't really make sense. I can't lie, it's a good long-term strategy, especially if you're building up to another installment of Smash Bros., where one of the main marketing angles is that colossal roster. I feel like it's obvious. Quick fix, get rid of these 3. And Corrin, for reasons that we will get into in the big analysis. Just check that out for a second. Doesn't that just look right? I'm cool with this. I don't feel like it needs a huge justification, but I'm prepared to give one. This is the big analysis, and it's gonna have everything it sounds like it's gonna have. Evaluation of characters based on ultimately arbitrary traits that I have assigned worth. Potentially correct pronunciation of made-up words. New Fire Emblem Smash characters that exist in my headcanon. And a happy ending. Marth is the smartest YouTube commenter because he is first. He is the first rep in Smash, the first protagonist of the first game in the series. He is the Mario of Fire Emblem. Classic Lord, regal, Altean Prince Marth, on the quest to slay the dragon, and that's all he needs to be, and he does it well, on top of being a very technically sound and satisfying character to play well. It makes sense why 37.5% of the current reps are remixes of him. He is the Fire Emblem character. Nuff said, really. I don't even know why I'm still talking right. Ike is really great because his kit is an entirely different take on a Fire Emblem lord. And in that way, he's very unique. He's much heavier, he's slower, he hits harder, and there's not a single way that he swings his sword that's like any other Fire Emblem rep. Speaking of swords, the one that he uses, Ragnell, is portrayed as being fucking huge and heavy as shit, and when you swing Ragnell in Smash, it feels that way. Even Ike's famous up B is a reference to his aether animation from FE 9 and 10, a 2-part attack that drains HP and ignores the enemy's defense stat. And at the time his games were released, it was a skill only unique to him. I also appreciate his inclusion because he's the first Fire Emblem protag to be a complete subversion of the Lord trope. He doesn't start out as royalty, he really doesn't care about any of that shit. Only after his actions earn him a lordship in Path of Radiance does he accept it reluctantly and then renounce it as soon as the war is over to go back to leading his mercenary company. He's a man with strong convictions. He doesn't care about fighting under a kingdom banner, he only fights for his friends, baby! Robin is dope. Robin's probably the best rep you could have picked from Awakening, actually. Not only do they have a unique kit compared to the other fighters wielding swords and magic, The application of weapon durability is really cool, and probably the last Fire Emblem mechanic that I would have expected to see show up in Smash. But they're also just hands down the best unit in Awakening, and arguably the best and most broken unit in the series. It's not saying much, but in terms of the current reps in Smash, they're the farthest thing from the sword-fighting lord. Roy began life as a shitty Marth that they honestly didn't even care enough to finish. I literally forget that Roy is in Melee all the time. It's cool that they made his kit a little more unique in Smash 4, but he still has a lot of similarities to Marth, and by the time he was added, we already had Marth, Ike, Lucina, Robin, and we were about to get Corrin a year later. Most of Chrom's moves are ripped from Roy. He has Lucina's no tipper and Ike's up B, which he only does once in a cutscene and never in gameplay. In Awakening, he can activate the Aether skill, but only the effects of the attack are similar to Ike's. The animation is completely different. But I'm the one who asked for creative liberties, so all this is probably just a bunch of bullshit. Lucina is semi-worthy of staying even as an Echo because there's a kind of canonical reason for her to fight like Marth. That's her display name for a bit before her mask gets slashed in half all dude perfect. But it would really make more sense for her to be a Chrom Echo because Chrom is her father and he's the one that taught her how to fight. She even says so in the same cutscene where Chrom does the spinny attack, and she does it too.
Corrin!
Corrin is both a Lord and an Avatar character, two archetypes that already have better representation in Smash. The only reason I would pick them to stay is because they're a dragon people, and they do have a unique moveset. But man, I remember when they rolled out Corrin like it was an advertisement. Because that's kind of what it was, guys, I'm not gonna lie. Like, maybe if they'd waited until after Fates came out in the West, it wouldn't have felt so heavy-handed. Like, come on, guys, I was gonna get the game regardless. I love tiles. But, like, I know nothing about this character, other than that they've chosen Smash, I guess. But when Corrin was initially added to Smash, it really just solidified to me that Nintendo was never going to stray from the safe picks when it came to the FE reps. As somebody who was a big fan of these guys growing up, I always held out hope that they could too someday join Smash. But that's probably kaput. I understand that you want reps to be easily recognizable, but I'd argue that if you do it right, any obscure character has the potential to become a fan favorite and draw people to the series. I mean, especially if you're gonna put 8 of them in the game, I feel like it only makes sense to add members of the supporting cast, because it's not like you only control the protag. That is the whole point of these games, is that you build up your army from a variety of characters, most of which you probably like more than the protag. And now, with the release of 3 Houses, Fire Emblem is more relevant than it ever has been, and we have nearly 600 characters across the whole series. And a great deal of the non-protagonist characters have fans. You do the math. Leon from Fire Emblem 8 The Sacred Stones is the man for Smash. The timid Prince of Grotto and learned scholar of dark magic is driven to use the power of the Fire Emblem to save his gravely ill father, with grave consequences. The king's body is reanimated, but no man remains. Yet, something wretched has a hold of the prince. His mortal coil is now a host for
Mortis, the Demon King.
Prince Leon cannot help but watch as his whole being is devoured and horrible acts of war and violence are inflicted upon his friends and countrymen by his very hand. Or can he? Watch this lore video. In Smash, I see Leon as a zoner using a variety of dark magic spells, but mostly Naglfar. Probably pretty floaty and a very hard hitter, a true glass cannon. And for his smash attacks, he could have some crazy ass demon arms coming out of his body. Plus, in Fire Emblem, Leon is actually a very unique class, a class that only exists in the game that he's from, and that is the Summoner / Necromancer class. Summoners have the special ability to spawn a 1 HP axe-wielding Phantom ally. The Phantom dies in one hit, but its stats and inventory scale with the Summoner's level, so I feel like there's huge potential there for like a Luma mechanic with like an aura-style damage scaling that could be super dope. Let me ask you something, do you know how many Fire Emblem characters ride horses? Me neither. There's so many, but none of them are in Smash, and that's why the legendary run-saving paladin Marcus from Fire Emblem 6 and 7 is the man for the job. And to reflect his role in the Fire Emblem games in Smash, I will make him OP. But he does slap in FE7 though, and in Smash he could represent another Fire Emblem archetype, the Jagan, named after Jagan from FE1. In a lot of FE games, the main lord starts out very weak. A lot of them have potential, but in the early game, 1 or 2 good hits will put them away, and that's a reset. So, until they become self-sufficient, or you get other soldiers to pick up the slack, you need a damage tank so that your lord doesn't get rushed and killed. This is a dynamic that's present throughout the whole series. Anyone that's done a Hector hard mode run will tell you, the first leg of the game is practically impossible without Marcus. And he's been saving these lords' asses for generations, bro. This man is a dead-ass boomer by the time he gets to retire. He's in his 60s in the battlefield in medieval times. Put some respect on his name. In his kit, he's got the whole weapon triangle to work with, but let's take some creative liberties with his mount. I see it being similar to Wario's bike. He can move on foot or choose to horse up. Unlike the bike though, I see Marcus having more varied movement options like jumping and dashing while he's mounted. Maybe he's got an altered moveset when he's mounted, where vertical DI determines whether attacks hit above or below the horse. Maybe if he takes too much damage on the horse, he loses it and it goes on cooldown, something like that. Plus, the fact that there's a young and old version of him means that you could do a young and old set of skins like they did with Ike. And I think that would be cool. I would like that. I'd be like, hey, I see what you did there. Okay, but watch what I do here. The reliable Laguz Alliance duo Leth and Mordecai are the cat people for Smash. And this how you do an echo, baby. The Tellius games are probably my favorites in the series, sans the probably. The world building, the characters, the story, the music, that political drama. One of the best fleshed out aspects of Tellius has to be the ongoing tension between the Laguz and the Bjork. For those unfamiliar, Laguz is the umbrella term for all those cat people, bird people, dragon people I was talking about earlier, and Bjork being a fancy Fire Emblem word for human. All the bloody history and tense relationships these nations have with themselves and with each other is just so well established and creates a really full and believable world. Sent by the Beast Nation of Gallia to assist Ike and company, the introduction of Leth and Mordecai mark a distinct jumping-off point in the story in my eyes, where this world and its mysteries start to open up to Ike and to the player, and we come to understand how different people in Tellius are reacting to the war. Being our first Gallian recruits, Leth and Mordecai also introduce us to a couple Gallian class types. Tigers, generally being bulkier with more strength and lower speed, and cats being the inverse of that. Do you see kind of where I'm taking this? Well, it gets easier cause all Laguz units have a unique mechanic called the transform gauge. At the end of every turn, and every time they take damage in human form, the gauge goes up a little. And when it gets full, they literally go beast mode. And you want that, because in human form, their only offensive tool is this shitty human kick that does nothing. And that's where I take some creative liberties and make their human form attacks do something. That's right, I'm buffing the punch. Beast form goes as expected. Lower profile, heightened movement, greater attack power, literally all their stats are doubled. So, did somebody say limit mechanic? Huh? But with a twist though. In Smash, I see beast form as like a hybrid between mana and limit to reflect how Laguz characters work more in Fire Emblem. Because once they're in beast form, the meter starts moving the other way. Not only every turn and when they take damage, but now when they deal damage as well, the meter starts to go down until it hits 0 and they turn back into shitty human people. So I could see a playstyle revolving around an economy of exchanges and heavy combo strings to maximize the effects of being transformed. I feel like since there are more factors that can decrease the transform gauge, it should last longer than something like Arsene, for example. Speaking of the transform gauge, Leth begins every mission with her transform gauge at a whopping 16 out of 20, man, making her ready to beast immediately, while Mordecai starts with his at 0, so he's got to hang around and do some punching for a bit. A detail that I feel is a worthwhile addition to their Smash kits to make the experience of playing one over the other more varied, and to account for the fact that Leth does less damage and is likely to die sooner.
Forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us.
Byleth from Fire Emblem Three Houses is joining.
Oh man, here we are, the big B. So, in terms of their kit, I like Byleth in Smash. They're a unique take on a Fire Emblem fighter, a different take on the move slower, hit harder kind of character, and it's cool to see them use multiple different types of weapons. However, they are a very safe and predictable character, even by FE rep standards, and there is what I feel to be an obvious and extremely hype evolution to their character within my headcanon. Byleth for Smash was clearly Three Houses' promotion. It's no coincidence that Cindered Shadows DLC was right around the corner. But the thing about Three Houses is that there's this mechanic, a feature we'll call it, where there's 3 different routes, and every route alters the character's story, gameplay, and lore. It's so integral to the game that it's literally the title. So, especially if you're trying to market it, why would you not just make the character the Three Houses? Byleth already uses all their weapons anyway. I see a Pokemon Trainer 3-in-1 type deal, a character structure that I feel is greatly underutilized, where you can switch between Dimitri, Claude, and Edelgard. So let's say you start out with Dimitri. He's got good range with his melee weapon, being a lance user and all that good stuff. I'll give him the same type of spear tipper that Byleth has, cause don't fix what ain't broken. He's got more damage and good speed, but he's lighter, so it's easier to take his stock. And let's say you're playing a game of Smash, that's exactly what happens. Bowser kills you with the side B at like 100, with good DI. So now you spawn in and you're playing as Claude. He's a bow user, and he is scheming. So he uses different types of bow and arrow attacks. Maybe he's got a variant that poisons. He's got fire arrows, bomb arrows. Maybe he's got a move that summons a volley of shots vertically, kind of like Pika's Thunder. I'd give him a sex kick nair, that just feels right to me. And since Claude eventually gets a wyvern when he promotes, that could be reflected in his recovery. You could hit that up B with Claude, maybe a little dragon buddy comes by, fly you back to the stage. Sure, you gotta give Claude good ledge trapping tools, but maybe he doesn't have the best out of shield game, so it's easier to pressure him by getting in his face. And if you're in that situation, that's when you hit that down B, use the warp spell, that's a creative liberty, bring in Edelgard. She's an axe user, and that axe packs a punch. On top of her armor, makes sense, she's slower and tankier. Maybe she's got tools to stall in the air or recover horizontally, but overall her vertical recovery is subpar, so it'd be essential to try and get those off-stage switches to recover efficiently. Like, there's a pretty nice opportunity here for a complex character who also represents the central decision of the game you're trying to push. As someone who was cracked off the Three Houses hype myself, the big question was, what house do I want to play? Not, do I want to play Byleth? Because I already know you're going to make me play Byleth. You know what I mean?